There are some people who have a problem with modern Trek. Fortunately, I'm not one of them, and I was cautiously optimistic for Strange New Worlds, but it didn't disappoint at all. I think it did what it wanted to do, and it did it well. The series stars Anson Mount, Ethan Peck, Celia Rose Gooding, Babs Osamakun, I hope I said that somewhere near right, Bruce Horak, Jess Bush, Christina Chong, Rebecca Romaine, so many great people in this. And a special mention goes to Andre De Kim, who some have called Transporter Twink, and I'm enjoying that so much. That's Chief Kyle, for those who haven't made the connection. I love that when I first saw it. I can't remember where I first saw it and who said it. I'm very sorry. But I love that, and I think we should all adopt that, because he's the Transporter Twink. But I love this series. I love the fact that from the get-go, whilst we had Captain Pike, we had Uhura, we had these characters that we'd known, the showrunner said, we're not going to let ourselves be hampered by existing lore and canon. We are very willing to say, does it serve the story? If not, then we're going to bend the rules a little, if you will. And I respect that. There are some things that don't quite match up perfectly, and I'll get onto those in a while, but there are things that are fine. There are things that don't necessarily overwrite or change anything that's gone before in our timeline, but technically after in theirs. Wibbly wobbly timey wimey, right? But everyone here does such a great job. The legacy and new cast alike. There's so many people here who I was vaguely familiar with from other works, like Christina Chong was in Black Mirror, I'd completely forgotten, but she's so different here as La'an. And I like the fact that they handled this Noonien Singh issue, because that was a lot of people's sticking point, and I was among them. I was like, but they weren't aware until the whole Khan thing. What? But they were aware of the eugenics wars, the name was known, they just didn't know these people had survived. That's, I think, what we're meant to take away from here. And it was fine. But she was herself like, yeah, I know, I carry that name. I can't help that. That's just who I am. They handled it so well. The sort of Damocles, if you will, that is hanging over Pike throughout this entire season, and will be until what happens, I think was handled well as well. The fact that we got that introduced in Discovery, which was almost like the backdoor pilot for this, people so warmed to that because it was like, okay, I don't know what Discovery is, but these are things I know. I think that's what most people's reaction was, and this is why it got greenlit. But the fact that we had these people who were now taking the mantle of some of these characters on, and like I say, introducing new ones, etc. I loved it. I think everyone did such a great job. Not just the legacy characters, the new characters. Hema being played by an actual person with severe sight impairment was great. I love it. It's nice when people with conditions, I've said it in the past, play people with those same conditions. You can do things with contacts to make them effectively blind. You can just have someone pretend. You can put people in wheelchairs who are otherwise able, etc. But when you've got someone who's lived that life, they will act naturally in the way that they're impaired, because that's what they've had to do for however long they've been impaired that way. So, and I say impaired, I agree with Hammer when he's talking in an earlier episode about how his other senses are far superior. It's not that he's impaired, he's differently abled, and I hate that term because it just sounds like PC nonsense in most cases, but in this case, it works. His abilities may not be sight, but his hearing, smell, etc. more than make up for it, and in fact, probably better than most people in that room. And his character was such a great character because it was, again, a move away from the idolatry, I guess, and overpraise of those of us who have disabilities. He wasn't some larger-than-life godlike character that we're, raising on a pedestal. He was a grumpy man. He was very abrasive, which is kind of what you need for an engineering chief. But he was this kind of character, but we warmed to him so that when that whole situation with the Gorn happened, we felt it. I felt it in my gut. I felt it so hard. I was like, no. I mean, fridgingly disabled guys, not a good move in many ways. I'm conflicted, but still, the impact was enough that I'm fine with it, I guess, if I have to be. But he was such a great way in opening up Uhura as well, because the Uhura in this is not I want to be in Starfleet. This is my life goal. It's my dream job. She's just lost because her family is. She's lost her family. She doesn't know what she wants to do with her life. How will she get meaning again? How will she become the Nyota Uhura that we know? By people like Hemmer teaching her that it doesn't have to all be this amazing thing. Just find your tribe, as it were, and you'll be fine. And that's what I like. He's giving her that thing of finding her tribe, finding her skill set, and going with it, utilising it. Obviously, we've seen some of these characters before, like I say, Ethan Peck more so as Spock. He's had a good run in Discovery, but here he's been able to dial down the human side a little more and lean into the Vulcan, so that he's a little more in line with Leonard Nimoy's portrayal, particularly. Quinto leaned a lot more into the emotion, so it's not anywhere near his, I would say. But that was fine too. I liked how he did that. And the episode where we saw his mental battle, if you will, with himself, human side and the Vulcan side separate, you can tell it wasn't just a slight clipped speaking and lower the voice. There was a lot more to it. There's mannerisms and everything in there. The fact that we saw the two sides separate, and we can go, yeah, he's actually somewhere in the middle. His portrayal is a nuanced take. It's not just be human but less, which a lesser actor would have potentially done. But like I say, everyone here was so great. I really want to give some praise to Jess Bush, who it took me a long while to realise she was Australian. She does that accent so well. But there's so much here that, like I say, that whole thing about not being hamstrung by existing lore worked in favour, and that's one of them. Any of the legacy characters could have just watched old portrayals and mimicked it. It would have been fine, I guess, but Majel Barrett is not Jess Bush. I think she would have been severely hamstrung. Her performances here, her characterisation, the fact that there is a definite like for Spock, which was shown even in the Nurse Chapel we got originally, was there here. The seeds were sown, there was this growing bond, this friendship, and it's believable. I think Mbenga gets such a great arc in this. I mean, the end of it's a bit ropey, but they had to kind of wrap it up, I think. But the portrayal and everything of it, the character, this was a guy who I wasn't that familiar with. The original series I watched as a kid, but I was a kid. There's a few moments that I can remember, but mostly it's clip shows that I've seen. I'm just like, am I remembering the clip shows or watching the episodes? One day I'll go back and watch them all, maybe, but there's so much here that, I'm like, yeah, I vaguely remember this stuff, vaguely. But I think his arc with his daughter, as I say, the end aside, I think it was a little too convenient. But that was the symptom of trying not to be too serialised. Whilst a lot of the modern series, Picard being particularly notable for it, I guess, or whatever word you want to use, it's very serialised. Episode 1 has to lead into episode 2, into 3, etc. There is a consistent arc throughout the whole thing. And most TV these days is like that because syndication isn't a thing anymore. People are binging it, you want a complete narrative. I get it, it's fine. The fact that we're willing to buck trends and go to the style of the original series, whilst older stuff did have, characters would reference things that happened a few episodes ago or whatever, you didn't have to watch them all in order. You could just dip into one. You might be confused by a couple of references, but the story would be self-contained. You'd understand it. And that's what they did here. Again, it all leads back into this. We're not going to be hamstrung by what's come before. But I'm going to leave with quite a funny thing on that note, because a lot of people who have gone, they're not Gorn. That's not the rubber monster, well, the guy in a suit that we saw. It doesn't have to be. Whilst I will reference something in a second, my take is we see animals in our world, in time now. We see things like dogs that we assume have like 7 years equivalent and cats that are about 5. But a lot of animals have a much shorter growing up period than we do. If like we have 18 years, that's often condensed, say, in the first year of their life. But then after that, they slow down. So it's not necessarily that the first year is 7 years. The first year might be like 21 years. But then the next year is more like maybe 5 or 6, for argument's sake. So my take is maybe the Gorn are like that. We see these from hatchlings to mature enough to be able to chase down, but they're not, I don't think, full adults. I think the Gorn captain we see in the original series is full adult end result. I noticed a lot of people aren't complaining that it doesn't look like the Enterprise one, because the Enterprise one looked terrible, but was technically a mirror universe one, so maybe that's why people aren't too bothered. And a lot of people give Enterprise a bad rap. I will still defend it, but that Gorn wasn't great either. But that's my take on it. The take I saw, Steve Shives is a great creator in this field, as well as wrestling and other stuff as well. But Star Trek stuff I watch all the time. And I know I've said before I don't like to watch other people's takes, but I wanted to watch this video because I knew it was just a few minutes of like why the Gorn being different isn't a big thing kind of thing. And it's basically, it's a fictional TV show. Ethan Peck isn't Leonard Nimoy. Jess Bush isn't Majel Barrett. These aren't the same people. Also, Rebecca Romijn isn't Majel Barrett. They're not twins in this universe. It doesn't matter that things look different. Maybe if the budget would have existed in the 60s to do Gorn like this, they would have been. But they worked with what they had. But yeah, Strange New Worlds, it handled so much of its legacy stuff well. It sowed some seeds. It set up the next season very nicely. Hopefully they won't make it super serialized.
I'm super serial.
Because I think that would remove the charm. This was fun. This was a breath of fresh air. Even the people who've hated modern Trek have, I don't know, had to, I guess, in some ways go, yeah, okay, I enjoyed that. And that's a win to me. So I know that people this side of the pond haven't been able to see it all. I shouldn't have been able to see it all, but we'll not talk about that too much. But if you do get the chance to watch it all, yeah, do. Enjoy it. It's great. There's some really fun moments. There's some really heavy moments. It balances it so well. It's getting darker now. Maybe that's the cue. So I'm going to leave it here. But thank you very much for letting me talk about this, as always. And until next time, take care.